It is funny how life can look so different in just a matter of weeks. Last Sunday, I was grilling steaks in my backyard, waving at neighbors, enjoying the kind of peaceful afternoon that used to feel boring. But 6 weeks before that moment, I thought I was going to die from the pain. My wife, the woman I loved for 8 years, stood in our living room and said words I never imagined hearing. She called it opening our marriage. I call it the day everything fell apart. Before we dive into what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And trust me, what happened when she came back after 6 weeks, that is something my entire neighborhood still talks about to this day. My name is Cooper. I am 34 years old, and I work as a construction engineer for a reputable firm in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. I have been doing this job for about 10 years now, and I am proud of what I have built in my career. But the thing I was most proud of was my marriage. Diana and I met in college. She was a marketing major, sharp as a tack with this laugh that could light up any room. We dated for 3 years before I proposed, and we got married the summer after graduation. By the time everything fell apart, we had been together for 8 years total. 5 years into our marriage, we finally saved enough to buy our dream home. It was a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where people wave at each other and kids ride bikes on the sidewalks. We had a little backyard where I would grill on weekends, and Diana planted roses along the fence. It felt like we had made it. Diana was ambitious. That was one of the things I loved about her. She worked in the marketing department of a pharmaceutical company, and she was good at her job. Really good. We used to travel once a year, just the two of us. Friday nights were movie nights at home with popcorn and wine. We talked about having kids in a few years, once we felt more settled. I used to tell my coworkers how lucky I was. Some of them complained about their wives, about the fights, and the distance that grows after years of marriage. But not me. I thought Diana and I were different. I thought we had something special. Then, about 18 months before everything exploded, Diana got promoted. She became the team lead for her marketing division, which meant more responsibility, more hours, and a new boss. His name was Marcus Webb. He was 42 years old, the regional marketing director for the company. He was divorced, no kids, and from what Diana told me, he was known for being charismatic and successful. The kind of guy who always knew what to say and how to say it. At first, Diana just mentioned him in passing. But slowly, Marcus started appearing in almost every conversation. It was always Marcus said this, or Marcus thinks that, or you will never believe what Marcus did today. I did not think much of it at the time. I was actually happy that she had a boss who appreciated her work. But then things started to shift. Diana began coming home late, 2 or 3 times a week at first. She said it was strategy meetings, big campaign preparations, dinners with clients. I believed her. Why would I not? This was my wife, the woman I had trusted for nearly a decade. I would cook dinner and wait for her. Sometimes I would eat alone, saving a plate for her in the microwave. When she came home, she would kiss me on the cheek and say she was exhausted. I told myself it was just a busy season at work. It would pass. Then came the night that planted the first seed of doubt in my mind. It was around 11 at night. I woke up to use the bathroom and noticed Diana was not in bed. I found her in the living room, phone in hand, smiling at the screen. The glow from her phone lit up her face, and she was typing something with this little grin I had not seen in a while. When I asked who she was talking to, she flipped the phone face down so fast it almost slipped from her hand. "Just a coworker," she said. "Nothing important." But the way she said it, the way her eyes darted away from mine, something felt off. After that night, I started noticing other things. Diana began buying new clothes, things she never would have worn before. She changed her hairstyle, started going to the gym almost every day. She looked great, but when I complimented her, she barely acknowledged it. Our intimacy faded. She was always tired, always stressed, always not in the mood. I tried to be understanding. I told myself she was under a lot of pressure at work. But deep down, something was gnawing at me. A voice in the back of my head that I kept trying to silence. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I chose to ignore. But at the time, I was so desperate to believe in my marriage that I convinced myself everything was fine. Everything was not fine. The night Diana proposed opening our marriage started like any other Thursday. I came home from work around 6, expecting her to be late as usual. But when I walked through the door, she was already there sitting on the couch with her hands folded in her lap. Something about her posture told me this was not going to be a normal conversation. "Cooper, we need to talk," she said. I sat down across from her, my heart already starting to race. She had this look on her face, serious, but also almost rehearsed, like she had been practicing what she was going to say. She started with all these theories. "Traditional marriage is outdated," she said. "Human beings were not designed to love just one person their entire lives. This is 2024, and relationships are evolving. People are finally being honest about their needs instead of suppressing them." I listened, but it felt like the words were coming from somewhere far away, like I was watching this happen to someone else. Then she got to the point. "I think we should open our marriage," she said. "It would give us both the freedom to explore, to grow. It could actually make our relationship stronger." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I asked her directly, "Diana, do you already have someone else?" She got defensive immediately. Her face flushed and she shook her head hard. "No, Cooper. Why do you always have to think the worst? I am trying to have an honest conversation with you about our future, and you immediately assume the worst." But I could not shake the feeling that there was something she was not telling me. I told her no. I said it clearly and firmly. I did not want an open marriage. That was not the life I signed up for. When I married her, I made a commitment, and I expected the same in return. That is when she started crying. "You do not love me enough to let me be happy," she said through her tears. "You are so selfish. You only care about what you want." I tried to hold her, tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away. She went to bed without another word, and I sat in the living room until almost 3 in the morning, trying to understand what had just happened to my life. The next 2 weeks were hell. Diana barely spoke to me. We ate meals separately. In bed, she would turn her back to me and pretend to be asleep. The house that used to feel like a home now felt like a prison where two strangers were serving time together. I tried to talk to her multiple times. I suggested couples therapy. I asked if there was something I had done wrong, something I could fix. But she shut me out completely. Some nights I could not sleep at all. I would lie there watching her breathe, wondering if the woman next to me was the same Diana I had fallen in love with all those years ago. She felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face, and through all of this, she kept coming home late, even later than before. Sometimes she would not get home until midnight, and she always had an excuse ready. The doubts I had been trying to suppress were now screaming in my mind. Then came the Saturday morning that changed everything. I woke up to the sound of drawers opening and closing. When I walked into the bedroom, Diana was packing a suitcase. I need some space to think, she said without looking at me. I am going to stay somewhere else for a while. My throat went dry, where I managed to ask. With a friend, she said. What friend? She paused for a long moment. Then almost casually, she said his name. Marcus. The floor dropped out from under me. I asked her what she meant. I asked her to explain. She turned around and looked at me with this cold expression I had never seen before. It is not cheating because I already told you I wanted an open marriage, she said. We are just friends, and I need time to figure out my feelings. I stood there unable to move, unable to speak, as she zipped up her suitcase and walked to the front door. I will be in touch, she said. Then a car I did not recognize pulled up in front of our house. Through the window, I could see a man behind the wheel. Diana walked out, put her suitcase in the trunk, and got into the passenger seat. I watched the car drive away until it disappeared around the corner. And just like that, my wife was gone. The first week after Diana left was the darkest period of my life. I could not eat. Food tasted like cardboard. I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her getting into that car with another man. I called her phone dozens of times, but she rarely answered. When she did pick up, her responses were short and cold. I need space, Cooper. Stop calling. Then I made the mistake of checking her Instagram. There she was at some fancy resort I did not recognize. She was smiling in the photo, holding a cocktail, looking happier than I had seen her in months. And in the corner of the frame, I could see it. A man's hand resting on the table next to her. That image burned itself into my brain. I started drinking. Every night I would sit on the couch with a bottle of whiskey, staring at the wall until I passed out. My work suffered. I showed up late, made mistakes, could barely focus on anything. Finally, I broke down and called my mother. She lives in Arizona, about 1,000 miles away. When she heard my voice crack on the phone, she did not ask questions. She just said, "I am coming." She flew out the next day and stayed with me for 3 days. She did not judge me. She did not say, "I told you so." She just held me while I cried and made sure I ate something. But even with her there, I felt like I was drowning. The turning point came when my oldest friend showed up at my door. Garrett and I have been friends since middle school. We played football together in high school, went to different colleges, but always stayed in touch. He had gone through his own divorce about 5 years back, so when he heard what happened, he drove 4 hours to see me. We sat on my back porch, and he let me talk for almost an hour without interrupting. I told him everything. The open marriage conversation, Diana leaving, the Instagram posts, the sleepless nights. When I finally stopped talking, Garrett looked at me and said something I will never forget. "She already made her choice, man. The question is, what are you going to do with your life?" I started to argue. I told him I still loved her. I told him maybe she would come back. Garrett shook his head. "Loving someone does not mean letting them walk all over you," he said. "You deserve better than waiting around for someone who is out there living her best life with another man." That night after Garrett left, I could not sleep. But this time it was not because of sadness. It was because something was shifting inside me. The next morning, I made a decision. I was done waiting. I called a divorce lawyer that afternoon. Her name was Sandra, and she had handled Garrett's divorce years ago. I explained my situation, and she was straightforward with me. "Your wife left voluntarily," she said. "You have evidence of infidelity. If you want to file for divorce, you are in a strong position." She advised me to start gathering evidence. So I did. I took screenshots of Diana's social media posts. I pulled our bank statements and discovered she had been spending money from our joint account on expensive trips and hotel stays. I documented everything. Sandra also advised me to protect myself financially. I changed the passwords on our joint accounts and transferred my share of the money into a personal account. Everything I did was legal and documented. Then I started taking care of myself. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. I boxed up Diana's belongings that she had left behind and put them in the garage. I started going to the gym again, something I had stopped doing years ago. I picked up extra projects at work and threw myself into them. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. My neighbors noticed the change. People would ask about Diana, and I would just say we were in different places in our lives. I did not badmouth her. I did not share the details. I just kept moving forward. One afternoon, Mrs. Thompson from next door came over with a plate of homemade cookies. She was 68 years old, a widow who had lost her husband about 10 years ago. She had always been kind to us. She handed me the plate and said, "You deserve to be happy, son. Whatever happens, remember that." Those words meant more to me than she could have known. 6 weeks passed. I was finally starting to feel like I could breathe again. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, everything came to a head. Garrett had come over for a barbecue. We had a few other friends there too, guys from work, some neighbors. I was at the grill flipping burgers, actually laughing for the first time in weeks. That is when the taxi pulled up. I did not recognize the car at first. Then the door opened and Diana stepped out. She looked nothing like the woman in those Instagram photos. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red and swollen. She was dragging a suitcase behind her, and her clothes were wrinkled like she had slept in them. She walked straight across the lawn toward me, not even acknowledging the other people standing around. "Cooper," she said, "why did you change the locks? I have been trying to call you. Why is my bank account frozen?" I set down the spatula and turned to face her. "Because this is not your home anymore," I said. Her face twisted with anger. "What do you mean it is not my home? I live here. I have rights. I just needed some time and now I am back. We can work this out." I shook my head. "You made your choice 6 weeks ago, Diana. You walked out that door and got into another man's car. You do not get to just walk back in like nothing happened." That is when she started screaming. She called me heartless. She called me cruel. She said I was punishing her for being honest about her feelings. She said I owed her another chance. By now, everyone at the barbecue had stopped talking. People were staring. Neighbors from other houses started coming out onto their porches to see what the commotion was about. Then Diana's story started to change. Through her tears, she admitted that Marcus had dumped her. Apparently, he had moved on to a younger woman at the company. Diana said she had finally seen him for who he really was. She said she had made a mistake. I just stood there looking at the woman I used to love, and I felt something I did not expect. Nothing. I looked her in the eyes and said, "You had your choice, Diana, and I have made mine. My lawyer will be in contact with you." She screamed louder. She called me every name she could think of. That is when Mrs. Thompson spoke up from the other side of the fence. "Young lady," she said firmly, "you need to leave. This man has been more than gracious by not calling the police already." Diana looked around. She saw all the faces watching her, the neighbors on their porches, my friends standing in awkward silence, the mailman who had stopped his truck to watch. For a moment, I thought she might actually try to hit me. Instead, she grabbed her suitcase, sobbing loudly, and walked back to the street. She stood on the curb for nearly 20 minutes, crying and trying to call someone on her phone until another taxi finally came to pick her up. And just like that, she was gone again. But this time I did not feel my heart break. I felt free. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. Sandra did an excellent job. She presented all the evidence we had gathered, the social media posts, the bank statements showing Diana had spent over $15,000 from our joint account on trips with Marcus, the timeline proving she had abandoned the marriage. Diana tried to fight for half of everything. She claimed she had a right to the house, to our savings, to the life we had built together. But the evidence was overwhelming. The judge ruled in my favor. I kept the house and most of our assets. Diana walked away with very little. During the proceedings, more truth came out. Through financial records and phone logs, it became clear that Diana and Marcus had been involved for almost a year before she ever brought up opening our marriage. The whole conversation had been a setup. She wanted permission to cheat without feeling guilty about it. When I said no, she did it anyway. Knowing the truth did not make me feel better. But it did help me understand that none of this was my fault. The months after the divorce was finalized were not easy. Some nights I still could not sleep. I would lie in bed and replay memories in my head. Our wedding day. The first time we walked through this house together. All the little moments that used to feel precious but now felt like lies. I joined a support group for people going through divorce. I was skeptical at first, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions I made. In that room, I met people whose stories were even more painful than mine. And somehow hearing their struggles helped me put my own into perspective. I learned that my pain was real, but it did not have to define me. I started hiking again on weekends. It was something I used to love before I met Diana, something I had given up without even realizing it. There is something about being alone in nature, surrounded by mountains and trees, that puts everything into perspective. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with. I started cooking real meals instead of ordering takeout. I read books again. I watched movies without checking my phone every 5 minutes. Garrett invited me to join a weekend basketball league with some guys he knew. I am not great at basketball, but it did not matter. For a few hours each week, I was just a guy playing a game with friends, not a man recovering from betrayal. Slowly, I started to laugh again. It has been almost a year since that Sunday afternoon when Diana showed up screaming on my lawn. Sometimes I still think about her. Not with anger, not even with sadness. Just with a kind of distant wonder, like remembering a dream that felt real at the time, but makes no sense when you wake up. I do not hate Diana anymore. Hate takes too much energy, and I have better things to do with mine. But I also do not miss her. I used to think marriage was the destination. Like if you could just get there, you had made it and everything would be okay. Now I understand that it was never about the destination. It was about the journey and who you choose to walk with. Diana chose to walk away, and in doing so, she gave me something unexpected. She gave me the chance to find myself again. I am sitting on my porch right now watching the sun go down. There is a cold beer in my hand, and nowhere I need to be. I do not know what the future holds. I do not know if I will ever get married again or if I even want to. I do not know if I will ever fully trust someone the way I trusted Diana. But I know one thing for certain. I survived. And I am going to be just fine. Sometimes the person who leaves you is actually giving you the greatest gift of all, the chance to find out who you are without them. And if you ask me, that is worth more than any marriage. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone walk out of your life only to realize later it was the best thing that could have happened? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. And if you have not already subscribed to the channel so you do not miss the next story. Thank you for being here with me. I appreciate every one of you. Take care of yourselves. And remember, no matter how dark things get, there is always light on the other side. Until next time.